Elected officials often say small businesses are the lifeblood of the American economy. Today we have the head of the Small Business Administration joining us on Close Up. Linda McMahon, thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And for anyone who doesn't know, Ms. McMahon is one of the founders of a professional wrestling empire, WWE Entertainment. So
that's correct. Thank
absolutely.
you.
And appointed by President Trump. So you're currently on a tour of every SBA office in the country. What have you learned so far?
I've learned what great people we have in all of our district offices around the country. And so my goal, we're calling it the Ignite Tour. We started with a Spark Leadership Conference in Washington last spring. So now the Ignite Tour is following that. So I'm going to every district office, but it's not just visiting the office, it's doing exactly what I've been doing in New Hampshire today, which was going to a business, having a tour of that business, and then a business roundtable. We had about 19 different businesses, companies represented at the roundtable to hear, what their issues are. And so then I do hopefully a lot of local media, like I'm doing here with you now, because I want to make sure that SBA doesn't continue to be the best kept secret in the country.
Right, and a lot of people know the SBA for loans, but it's much more than that. Explain.
It is much more than that. We have our resource partners, our SBDC, small business development companies. We have our women's business centers, our veterans outreach. We have our emerging leaders program, which helps train entrepreneurs in business, and it's of no cost to them to come. And I've heard many businesses say they would not be in business if it weren't for loans, capital, but also for the mentoring aspect of, developing their business plans, looking at their marketing plans. How can they better utilize, online and social media to grow and develop their business? So, SBA's goal is to help entrepreneurs start businesses, or to help people who are in business to continue to grow and be success at what they're doing.
Tax reform is such a huge issue in Washington right now. If I own a small business, say in Nashua, that does about a few $100,000 worth of business a year, what's in it for me?
I can tell you every place in the country that I have been, every small business I have talked to has said to me, without fail, if I had a tax cut and I had more money to invest, I would invest it back into my company. Whether that's hiring another employee, whether it's branching out, whether or not it's developing a new product line, I would reinvest that money back into my business. So it's incredibly important, I believe, that with tax reform, we are looking at tax cuts, across the board for everyone, but small businesses are especially going to benefit.
Here in New Hampshire, one of our biggest economic struggles right now is workforce. There are all sorts of jobs out there that small businesses and big businesses want to hire for. We don't quite have enough qualified workers. Are there any thoughts coming out of Washington as to how we might be able to thread that needle and solve some of that problem?
Well, and New Hampshire's not alone. The workforce issue is clearly around the country. And I've heard from so many different businesses, and it has to deal with, first of all, a skilled and trained workforce, and also a workforce that wants to work, wants to come to work, wants to have a good day's pay, for a good job. So it's both of those things. So one of the things that the president has done, he's signed a bill for entrepreneurship and asked for a set aside of $100 million to go into that program, so you can be earn as you learn. Because I think what we've forgotten over the years is the value of a skilled workforce. Our carpenters, our electricians, our plumbers, and the technology aspect of what we need, to train people for. So to be able to help provide the economics to train, but also getting the private sector to coordinate more with our community colleges, our technical schools, helping develop the curriculum that private industry needs. There are many in the private sector now who are not only helping to write that curriculum, but they're also putting in equipment for instance, in manufacturing, so that the students in the schools, those vocational schools or the community colleges, are not only training in the culture and what the company, the private sector needs, but they're actually training on the equipment that they will use, so they are ready-made for the employer, and often they're part of an apprentice program during that whole time that they are in college. So that's a real win-win to be able to do that. But there's 6 million jobs available in our country, and we don't have the workforce to fill it.
You live in Washington now, but your home is in New England, so you're relatively familiar with the opioid crisis that has afflicted our region. And that plays into the workforce issue as well. We have some qualified workers that come with a history of addiction, potentially some criminal convictions in there related to it. What's the way forward on that? What's the best way to try and move past that, well, I guess still acknowledging it at the same time?
I think what we're trying to do across the country, and the president certainly has put a great deal of focus on the opioid epidemic, you know, by labeling it just that and calling national attention to it. But it is through education, it is through monitoring, it is through helping to have those folks who are taking these drugs, you know, to understand how detrimental they can be. Kids who get into medicine cabinets, who take part of their parents', you know, unused prescriptions. We have to be careful about not throwing any of that medication that's left over away so that it's easy, you know, to get access to it. I mean, like just throwing it, you know, in a trash can or something. But there's so many measures, and I think, you know, Department of Health and Human Services it really does have a good plan and is continuing to work on the plan to get that done.
Does the government need to take a greater role at all in ensuring that people in recovery can obtain a good job?
Oh, I'm sorry, that they can.
I guess the idea being,
people in recovery.
You know,
I thought you were going to go with that is how can the government help people in recovery?
Right, but but exactly. A job would be a great way, right? And,
well, absolutely. And I think that what SBA does is really look at small business. You know, a way often that a person gets into a small business is because they have a great idea for a business and they want to get started. So SBA can help them do that. They may be, you know, a recovering addict or someone who's trying to get over a hump. So getting involved in their own business and their own ideas is probably one way to get ahead with that.
We're seeing right now in the world of business, particularly though in the entertainment industry, kind of a reckoning when it comes to workplace environment, harassment, assault, and things like that. And it's sparking conversations around the country about the issue. What would you like to see happen as this evolves, particularly when it comes to women's well-being in the workplace?
Well, I think it's everybody's well-being in the workplace. There have been, you know, over the years, provisions that have been passed. I know in the state of Connecticut, sexual harassment training is mandatory. And at a company, being the CEO of a company, I know how dedicated we were to making sure that those issues were addressed, that no one should have to be in an environment in which they're harassed, whether it's women or men. You have to treat each other with respect. You have to make sure that we're using common sense and I think just common decency towards one another.
It had to be difficult in the business you were in, though, with that entertainment aspect. Conflict, sometimes lewd and rude language was part of the course, and it became wrapped up in the storyline of the business. How did you keep those two things separate?
Oh, well, sometimes that when WWE was writing its storylines and moved on to, you know, to TVPG. So I think there are times when the entertainment industry is more evolving relative to society, but it's, you know, WWE is just a fun product and a wonderful business to have been associated with for so long.
Speaking of that, are there any lessons that translate from the world of professional wrestling to Washington as you've experienced it so far?
Well, sometimes it's kind of nice probably to have a hip toss in your pocket.
Just in case, right?
Just in case.
All right. Well, Linda McMahon, the Ignite Tour is taking you here through New Hampshire. Where's the next stop?
Well, I'm in New Hampshire this week. Honestly, I'd have to look at my schedule to see where I was.
It's a busy schedule.
I have been from Puerto Rico to Anchorage to Seattle, Portland, Boise, Denver, East Coast stops, Florida, Texas, especially, you know, with the disaster relief aspect of what SBA does, which is not even known by many as to how involved SBA gets into disaster economic recovery.
And helping those businesses get back on their feet after a natural disaster. Well, Linda McMahon, head of the Small Business Administration, we thank you for your time today. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right.